In 2014, I was forced to use Uber regularly. I couldn't drive for 12 months because of some DUI charges, a stupid mistake I had to live with. On weekends, I often went to a nightclub in town with friends. If we had a designated driver, I'd catch a ride with them. Otherwise, Uber was my lifeline home. One night, I wasn't feeling too great and left the club early, sometime between 1 and 2 in the morning. It was freezing, far too cold to walk home, so I opened the Uber app. A driver nearby named Alex popped up. Something about his profile picture gave me chills. He looked off, an older man, unsmiling, with a gray goatee and a black beanie pulled low over his head. Still, he was only 2 miles away, and his car was listed as a Chevy Malibu. Sounded decent enough. So I booked the ride. I waited outside on the bench next to the bouncer, who stood silent and motionless like a statue. After about 5 minutes, a silver Chevy Malibu pulled up, not a new model, but some old, beat-up 2003. My stomach sank. This wasn't what I expected. The driver didn't roll down the window, didn't wave, didn't honk. He just idled at the curb. I forced myself to get up and slide into the back seat. From the moment I sat down, the air felt wrong. He didn't greet me, didn't glance back. His face was expressionless. The only words he muttered in a low, quiet tone were, "Where you headed?" I gave him my address. We started driving, but in the opposite direction of my house. I told him this. He turned at the next intersection, but instead of rerouting toward the main roads, he drifted into silent, dark residential streets. My unease grew sharper. He hadn't even entered my address into his GPS. I quickly pulled up directions on my own phone so he could hear them. But when the GPS instructed him to turn left, he drove straight through. I frowned, gesturing at him. That's when he muttered something that sent ice down my spine. "I just got to make a quick stop. Don't worry, I'll give you a discount." Even through the alcohol in my system, I knew something was wrong. Dangerously wrong. Then I saw it, the black handle of a handgun, sticking out from the glove box by his side. My heart hammered against my ribs. My palms were sweating. I tried the door handle quietly, praying I could slip out at the next red light, but it didn't budge. My stomach dropped. The child lock was on. We drove farther and farther away. By now, we were at least 2 towns over. I couldn't call the cops, not with him sitting inches away from a gun. I had to think fast. There was only one chance. Get close enough to the front seat to unlock the child lock myself. But that meant moving without him noticing. I locked my eyes on him through the rear-view mirror, waiting until his gaze drifted back to the road. Slowly, carefully, I slid behind him, my body tense, every muscle screaming with fear. Somehow he didn't notice. Now came the riskiest part. I had to reach up, flick the lock, and escape before he could react. We approached an intersection. The light turned yellow. He slowed the car, and I knew this was my only chance. The second the car stopped, I reached up. My hand shot forward toward the glowing button. That's when he jerked in his seat, eyes snapping to me, his face twisted in rage. He screamed, his hand darting for the gun. But I'd already yanked the door open. I bolted out, sprinting toward a Cadillac Escalade waiting at the light. I slammed my fist against their windows, begging for help. The driver looked at me, then drove off. But it didn't matter, because when I turned around, Alex and his Chevy Malibu were already gone, speeding down the block. I ran into a 24-hour grocery store nearby and called a taxi, sitting under the harsh fluorescent lights. Shaking, I realized the alcohol haze was gone. The fear had burned it out of me. I reported him to Uber the next day. They told me the case would be escalated to authorities. A week later, a police officer came by my house and asked me questions. That was it. No updates. No closure. To this day, I have no idea what became of Alex. But I never used Uber again. The passenger named Tom. I've driven for Uber before, so I've seen my fair share of unpleasant characters. Drunk crowds at 2 a.m., people pretending to be handicapped to get free rides, the usual late-night nonsense. Every so often you pick up someone who's just a creep. I'd met a few of those, but never anyone like Tom. It was a Friday night in December one of the coldest of the year. I was 18, driving a new Honda Accord my parents had spoiled me with, and decided to do some late-night pickups. My dad had always told me to keep a blade in the car, just in case, and at the time I'd laughed it off. That night, I was glad it was there. Tom's request popped up a couple of miles away, near a major shopping center. I accepted and pulled into the lot. A group of teenagers loitering by the storefronts watched me as I drove past. Something in their faces told me to keep moving. I did a couple of laps through the lot to put distance between me and them. Then I saw a man coming up to my car from behind. I rolled my window down and called, "Tom?" He answered, "Yes," but it took me repeating "hop" in 3 times before he finally understood. He walked slowly around to the back and slid into the seat directly behind me, the kind of placement that makes a driver uneasy. Most passengers sit diagonally. Sitting directly behind felt intrusive. He was older, at least in his late 40s, and smelled like cigarettes. When he spoke, it was a gravelly, half-mumbled thing. He gave me an address, and I entered it. It was 10 miles away, a decent fare. Small talk died quickly. Short, mumbled answers, long silences. By the time we crossed 5 miles, the car felt thick with deliberate, watching quiet. I kept catching him in the rear-view mirror. He was staring, not glancing, staring. My foot instinctively pressed harder on the gas. By 8 miles, the streets thinned, a lonely stretch bordered by woods and an occasional abandoned building. I glanced down at the map on my phone. The route led to a dead-end road with no nearby cross streets. My stomach dropped. I asked, "Is that your house?" He paused a long beat, then said, "Yes." Less than a mile left now. The road ahead narrowed, and the darkness pressed in. I slowed to scout the dead end, hoping to spot a porch light or house. There was nothing, only pitch black and silhouettes of trees. I pretended I'd missed a turn, hoping he wouldn't notice. He noticed. He snapped, "Turn around." His voice was sudden and sharp. My heart stuttered. I performed a quick 3-point turn. While I did it, I palmed the end beside my seat and felt the reassuring shape of the blade. I flicked it open quietly and held it in my right hand, fingers curled around the handle. My left kept the wheel steady. I told myself to stay calm, to stay in control. We rolled down the dead-end road to the farthest point. No houses, nothing but trees swallowing the weak cone of my headlights. He unbuckled, opened his door, then, almost casually asked, "Can you get out for a second? I need help carrying my bag. I've got a bad back." He hadn't come with a bag. He didn't have a bag in his lap. When he climbed in, I knew that. My voice trembled. Yeah, sure. Give me a sec." Then, instantly, without warning, pressure slammed into the back of my neck. For a second, the world narrowed to a clamp of hot fingers crushing the wind out of me. He was choking me from the back seat. I didn't have time to plan. Adrenaline took over. I drove my blade into his left arm as hard as I could. He screamed, a raw, surprised sound, and released his grip. He fell out of the car and hit the asphalt. I don't remember thinking to check if he was down. I remember putting the car in gear and flooring it. I didn't look back. I barreled down the road until it spat me out onto a busy main road. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely steer. I never called the police that night. I didn't sit with it or process it. I drove straight home, stripped off my jacket, and tried to sleep away what had happened. After that ride, I stopped driving for Uber. I didn't resign publicly or make a scene. I just walked away. I still think about that dead-end road sometimes, about the way he stared through the mirror like he owned the dark. I'm thankful for the blade my dad told me to carry, thankful for a reflex and luck that let me get out of that car alive.